Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
How you doing? Welcome to the program. It's the 8th of something or other, April. Geez, guys, I'm a little, I think the Yiddish word is verklempt. I'm all mixed up because things keep changing on me, and I'm blaming it on the eclipse. and also, we've been fiddling with the technological aspects of the show. Kevin came over Friday and spent a lot of time updating stuff and giving me a Ethernet cord, so I'm not on Wi-Fi. And Kevin, if you're listening, it seems like everything is slowed down. It doesn't seem better. I'm just saying. Whatever. So, I think I'm up and running and available to take calls and all that kind of stuff, as far as I know. So I've been going back and forth about this eclipse thing. My God, when American media get their hands on something, they make it so, I don't know, between like governments, state governments calling for states of emergency and advice like, make sure your car has this, that, as if there could be an apocalypse as opposed to an eclipse. And I can't tell if they're just trying to discourage people from getting in their cars. I suspect anybody who's really serious about this is already where they want to be, right? The people who travel. I'm still up in the air. But I could, when the show is done, jump in my car and head northwest. Because every once in a while, you read something that does make you think, well, you might want to make a little effort to experience this thing, which you will not have the opportunity to experience again in your lifetime. The next one being in 44. I mean, technically I could be around, but if I ain't willing to go now, odds are when I'm whatever the hell I'll be when I'm in 1944. Jesus, Cullen. Anyway, so there you go. Blah 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 blah. Here's the thing. One of the things that did it for me is someone writing a letter to the Times that said this. It's not only sight that is affected by a total eclipse. Both blind and sighted people can feel its effects. As the eclipse progresses, the temperature drops noticeably, usually about 10 degrees, sometimes more. If there are birds or animals around, they will grow silent, although crickets will start their evening song. I don't know, all of this kind of natural aspect of it is awesome, I'm sure. I was looking at, Iceland is experiencing just huge volcanic eruptions right now, and I happened to see a particularly astonishing video of just unbelievable amounts of red, hot lava spewing out of this one volcano and down its sides. And, you cannot, nature, the natural world is mind blowing. And we live our lives, most of us, really very much removed from it. and or seeing it as something that needs to be regulated in some way. I don't know. So I'm thinking I might just, yeah, if I have a shot, I'm going to try to get into the totality zone. And something else that I learned today when I was reading more about it is that in the totality, once the sun is totally obscured by the moon, you can take those glasses off and look directly because the sun ain't there and it will not harm your eyes. So during the totality, if you're where the totality is, you can literally look at that and you'll see stars in the middle of the afternoon and you can look straight at the sun. That's like some heavy duty stuff to me. I don't know. We'll see. I'm guessing what'll happen is I'll jump in my car, I'll get a certain, I don't know, I'll get stuck in traffic. That's what's going to happen. I won't even get out of Pennsylvania before I'm stuck in some traffic jam and I'll be cursing myself and then having to figure, is it worth, I don't know. So we'll see. I'm in for a strange day, I suspect. Other things that I learned about eclipses, and if you're so sick of this stuff you want to scream, I'm sorry, but I'm almost done with my eclipse stuff. But I saw one science writer who said that she remains amazed that solar eclipses, total solar eclipses, are even possible. Because just take in these numbers. The sun, which is this huge ball of gas over 90 million miles away from us. It's almost a million miles wide as well. I mean, its size we can't get our puny little heads around, or the fact that it's 90 million miles away. The moon, on the other hand, is just 240,000 miles away. Not 90 million, 240,000. My God, it's a wonder we don't bump into it. It's like right there. And rather than being almost a million miles wide, the moon is about 2,100 miles wide. So it is tiny, tiny in comparison to the sun. But understanding perspective and the fact that the tiny orb, is so much closer to us, every once in a while things configure so that it does, this little teeny thing, manage to obliterate, if only for 3 or 4 minutes, that huge ball of gas 90 million miles away. And the scientists said if the moon were just a little bit smaller or a little further off, or if the sun were a bit bigger, or a tiny bit closer, it wouldn't happen. You would not have a total eclipse. It wouldn't be possible. So the other thing that sort of got me about it is that there's no scientific reason that this should happen. It's simply a wondrous, again, awesome coincidence. And it is one that earthlings have lived with and wondered about and marveled at ever since we've been around. So there you have it. So there's that. the big story today. The other thing, the most amazing thing that I learned since last we spoke was that wombats, are you aware of wombats? They're tiny little, like rodent looking like things. A wombat poops cubes. Now, it is the only animal known that poops in, those that shape, cubes. And I mean, it makes sense that most animals would say, I don't think that makes a lot of sense. Yo, why would I bring up that wombats poop cubes? Because I received an email from a gentleman who lives here in Pittsburgh, and he informed me that he was part of a songwriting duo. He and a gentleman in England, and that they had met as boys or young men a long time ago, I think maybe in the 60s, at a boarding school or something in England. And they maintained their friendship. And the two of them, the guy here in Pittsburgh, whose name is I don't think he'd mind me saying this, whose name is John White, I believe. He writes the lyrics to the songs, and the guy in England uh, does the music part. And John White sent me this interview that the BBC did with the two of them. And it's a riot. And one of the songs, well, the song, and this is at the BBC's choice because these guys have more than one song, was the Wombat Poop Song. Now, I don't have the ability, I'm sure I do, but I don't know how, to share it with you. But suffice to say that upon hearing it, it's hard to get it out of your head. It's a catchy, wonderful tune. And I'm telling you that it is available to you on YouTube or other things. If you just Google the Wombat Poop Song, the odds are you will find it and have as much fun listening to it as I have. So I'm just telling you that, okay? Wombats poop cubes. Just saying. And then, when you Google that, you find all these scientific things trying to explain how the hell any animal can poop a cube. So it turns out who knew? Given all the stuff that we got to deal with in this world, it's a delightful little I don't know, distraction. Oh, so well, let's see. I'm gonna cross off the eclipse. I'm gonna cross off wombat poop. And man, I ate up a quarter of the show. Yes! This to me is good. I also want to return to an obituary that I gave short shrift to because I didn't have an obituary in front of me. And one of you had said that you would like me to, share something about this Pittsburgh guy. who had died. And then the New York Times did an obit on him this weekend. So I'll just share a little bit of that with you. He was born Joseph O'Flaherty in June of 41, the eldest of 7 children here in Pittsburgh. He was born Joseph O'Flaherty, but the obit calls him Joe Flaherty. The O got lost because, as so often happens, when you get into showbiz, you find that somebody who got there before you has your name. And I guess there can't be 2 of you. So this Joe O'Flaherty had to lose his O and become Joe Flaherty. And I must admit that he wasn't on my radar much. I didn't get to enjoy his work, although I realize now that I have seen him somewhat. His father was a production clerk at Westinghouse, and they were poor. And he's quoted in his in the obit as saying, "I still remember nuns from the church bringing us food." He went to Central Catholic, graduated from there, joined the Air Force at 17. Now, he is most known, of course, for his work on the sketch comedy series SCTV, and for younger folks as the father on Freaks and Geeks, which was an NBC sitcom that didn't last long but had a very, devoted audience. He worked over the years with John Candy, Martin Short, you name them, Rick Moranis, Harold Ramis, Eugene Levy, all those guys. And they all came out of that SCTV thing. Anyway, among the characters that I guess they played various characters all the time, he was known for a character called Count Floyd, who wore a cheap vampire costume while hosting a horror movie show, Monster Chiller Horror Theater. And that I'm reading from the Times obit. Well, no Pittsburgher reads that and doesn't realize that that's an homage to Chilly Billy's Chiller Theater, right? Has to be. That was Flaherty's role. That must have been Flaherty's thing. So he must have done, it had to have been in some ways inspired by Chilly Billy Cardill. This is for all the Pittsburghers out there who are listening. And Chilly Billy was, wow, another great guy. So there's all of that. And what happened is before he went off to the Air Force, it turns out he had taken a class at the Pittsburgh Playhouse. And he liked it. And so after he got out of the Air Force, he came back to Pittsburgh and went back to the Pittsburgh Playhouse. And he was intent on being a serious actor. That was what he loved. And he appeared in one of their productions of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. And he played George, the younger professor, if you know the play and or movie, in the movie played by George Segal. And he was stunned upon the first performance with an audience when the audience laughed at some of what he said, his lines. It hadn't occurred to him that they were funny or were meant to be funny. And he got concerned. He said, I thought, geez, what are they laughing at? This is a drama. But he realized that the lines were funny. He hadn't noted it, and he enjoyed making people laugh. And that's where he found out that he enjoyed making people laugh and he was good at it. So that's how it happened. Next thing you knew, he was over in Chicago at Second City. And so that's Joe Flaherty. He died at the age of 82. Okay. I felt bad not being able to give a Pittsburgher a proper send off. So there's that. Hey, did you see another Boeing airplane? God, I gotta tell you guys, I'm not planning on getting on a plane until August. Gotta get to my mom's birthday, but geez, and Boeing. Here's what I'm wondering: did you see the video of the latest one? I guess it happened yesterday. Plane made an emergency landing, I think, in Denver. I mean, I saw a video like some poor schmo on the plane took. We're sitting near the wing, and so they had a full view of this. It later was said to be the engine cowling, the thing around the engine, like just sort of like ripping and then flapping around, and clearly something that's not supposed to happen. Part of the plane coming apart. Now this is happening. Is it just me, or of all of a sudden does it seem it's happening at an incredible rate? And it either is or it isn't, because I'm recalling again how media, having been in it for so long, have an incredible ability to make us think something is more prevalent or bigger than it is. And that's because media gets stuck on a story and then they amplify it. So you'll recall the kidnapped children thing, the missing children thing. I was working in television news at the time, and that's when, little kids' pictures were on milk cartons. And the thing is, all of a sudden, an entire generation of parents were terrorized that their children were going to be kidnapped. Now, in reality, nothing had changed. Nothing. There was not all of a sudden an uptick in children abduction. It was just media was now focused on it, and often not put into context, so that after God knows how long and how many terrorized parents in its wake, finally some information got through that this was almost always a parent taking a child from another parent. And it was not the stranger danger thing that was played up. So I think, and I've seen other things like this where we start focusing on one thing and then you can't get away from it, and all of a sudden it seems like every other second it's happening. So I'm wondering if these plane things didn't happen before, but didn't make the news because the plane landed. People also didn't have video to, readily available. And I'm wondering about that. That all of a sudden, Boeing, I mean, their planes are all over. Anyone who's flown has flown on their planes. Clearly, most of them don't fall apart in midair. But I think now, and I just again would caution that, and Boeing's screwed. I mean, there's nothing. This is like the worst possible, heads have rolled, of course. But once you get this thought implanted in people's heads, it's pretty hard to get it out of there. So yeah. Anyway, there's probably somewhere today something will happen on a Boeing flight and it will be noted. Okay, when before it would not have. I'm just giving you that sort of inside scoop on how media work, having seen it up close and personal. God, it's like another big one when I was at WTAE TV was radon. All of a sudden, it was like your house wants to kill you, and good God, it was. I think we figured out a radon story a day for a while there because you get, you know, I don't know, you get obsessed because media get obsessed. Oh God. I say media obsessed, and then of course whose face pops into my poor head. Oh my God. It is so odd that one awful human being can take up so much space. So much space. Wow. Part of me says we deserve better. I mean, if somebody's going to take up that much space, at least have them be uh, a genius or something, or at least nice to look at, or give me one aspect that's not horrific. Oh my God. Ruth sent me this. I missed this one. I thank you for it, Ruth, since I found myself on. It's one of his regurgitations this weekend on Truth Social. And given the fact that he's looking at his trial actually beginning in 1 week, he wrote this. If this partisan hack, that would be the judge, if this partisan hack wants to put me in the clink for speaking the open and obvious truth, I will gladly become a modern day Nelson Mandela. Oh my God. Okay, I'm trying not to vomit. It will be my great honor. Oh my God. The problem with the gag order is exactly that. He's taunting the judge because he can't believe for a minute that this poor judge would put him in jail. And yet, he should if Trump violates the order. He didn't violate it with that because the judge said you can still call me what did he call him? A partisan hack. Oh, judge says you can call me whatever you want, but my daughter, my family, jurors, all these other people are off limits. So, Trump threading the needle there. If he ain't Nelson Mandela, he's Jesus Christ. And to that, all I can say is, Jesus Christ. Like I said, why can't we have a more interesting, compelling human taking up so much damn space in our poor heads? Uh, Hang on. I got so many goddamn things happening here. Hang on. Whoa, whoa. Well, the sun's coming out. That's good. Okay. Okay, I'm going to try to ease it up again. Did you hear about the guy? I guess he's a Brit. And, you wonder how some people get it in their heads. I think I'm going to, and then fill in the blank. Something that no one in their right mind would think of doing. And then, damn, they do it. Now, this guy, let me dig up his name for you here. He got in his mind to run the length of the continent of Africa. Run it from the tippy toe bottom in South Africa, I think. And amazingly, he picked the west coast, which it seems to me would be the longer of the coasts, given that big sort of hump that comes out as you head north. And up that coast, this guy ran. 27-year-old guy. Well, he was 26 when he started. It took him astonishingly less than a year. In less than a year, granted 352 days, but that's less than a year. And I believe this was a leap year too, right? It's less than a year. And damn, his name is Russ Cook. Short and sweet. Can you imagine how many people do you know who have a 2-syllable name and it's both their first and their last name? Russ Cook. That's very to the point. So Russ Cook ran across 16 countries, almost 10,000 miles, 60 miles short of 10,000 miles, up the west coast of Africa. Crossed the finish line in Tunisia, I guess Sunday. And the thing is, he was doing all this for money that he's giving to a charity, which is awfully nice. It's believed that no other person has done this. Well, that's why I started by saying, who the hell gets up in the morning and thinks, I think I'm going to run the coastline of Africa. Now, in that almost year that he was doing this, he was robbed at gunpoint. I'm not sure. Oh, in Angola. So Angola, of all these countries he went through, he'd say, I didn't have a great impression of Angola. He was robbed at gunpoint. He was held by machete holding men in the Republic of the Congo. And Algeria, he had to run in place when he got to Algeria because they wouldn't give him a visa to get in. And eventually there was such an outcry when his plight, the media got hold of it. The Algerians said, all right, take your damn visa and run to Tunisia. Jesus. So he did. His words upon finishing, I'm a little bit tired. There was one point at which he didn't. He ran the equivalent, I forgot, of how many marathons. I mean, it's just ludicrous what he ran every day. It's almost like he ran a marathon almost every day. And his body was beat up. he did take some time off in Nigeria to get some scans done on some of his bones. And then, even though he was in agony, he said, I figured the only option left was to stop mincing about like a little weasel, get the strongest painkillers available, and get on the road again. Good God. And there's a challenge to us in this. Before setting off on this run, he said, I'm a totally normal bloke. So if I can do this, hopefully people can apply this to their own lives in whichever way they choose. For 99% of people, it's not going to be running across Africa. But maybe they'll think of chasing their dreams a little bit more. And I think that's why I'm gonna go chase this friggin' eclipse. Michael says he got his ballot today, and he wants to know if I have any thoughts on the Attorney General. Attorney General, yeah, I think that's Malcolm Kenyatta, isn't it? I think that's my thought. That I really liked him. You know, he ran. What was he running for that he was so impressive? When Fetterman was running. Yeah, I think Kenyatta for AG. But whoever you want, it's your ballot. I'm not sure who the big boys who put out those endorsement things have suggested, and they haven't always agreed this year. There's some division noticeable within the Democratic Party right now. So, but I'd say I think it's Malcolm Kenyatta. If his name is there, I would vote for him. I really think he's a smart, good guy. Excuse me while I guzzle. All right. Now what? Oy. Well, I've blown all my my good stuff. I blew my good stuff. And you're thinking that was her good stuff? Jeez. Um, oh, there's that. It's interesting that actually there are now Republicans in Congress, and I'm glad to see this, that are flat out saying out loud what is obvious and has been for some time, that a whole hunk of their party has been taken over by the Kremlin. And it's fascinating to see that there are some of these Republicans willing. I guess they still vote along with, Trump, but this is, for them or some of them, this is one bridge too far. Good God. Who is it? This congressman Michael Turner, who chairs the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. And he's got enough brain cells to see that Russian propaganda, especially regarding Ukraine, has totally infected a huge number of his compatriots in the Republican Party. It is, he said, and he said it is absolutely true. And what he was doing is he was agreeing with another Republican who came out and said earlier, this guy is the Foreign Affairs Committee chair, Michael McCall, and this is a Texas Republican in the House who said in an interview that Russian propaganda has infected a good chunk of my party. And yeah. So, you see, well, the guy who's heading their ticket is a Putin puppet. So, this is not a major shock or anything, but I'm glad to see that some Republicans are at least calling it out and saying that in fact is what is happening. It's fairly obvious to anybody who's paying any attention uh, at all. Um, okay, wow. Excuse me, I'm getting, I'm sorry, I forget to look at the call thing. And if any of you called and just gave up, this is the first time I've even bothered to look. And I'm sorry if multitasking. How to never let your head be in one place at once. Oh, great story. I do want to share this with you. Did you see the story about this essentially trivia? This guy, quiz show guy, who's an American. And I don't know if some of you are into, you know, smart quiz shows, you Jeopardy fans, stuff like that. But Jeopardy is like uh, kindergarten compared to some of the British shows. Anyone, and I have to admit I have, bothered to watch some of their quiz shows, you just sit there with your mouth hanging open and thinking, who the hell would know that? Who the hell even understands what this question is? And it turns out that an American has uh, totally changed the Brits in regard to how they do these things. I mean, because he beat them. He beat them left, right, center, up, and down. Let me give you some of the. You think I'm kidding? I'm going to give you a question. Including the language, sometimes known as Shanghainese, what two-letter term denotes the Sinitic language group spoken around the lower Yangtze? Anybody? Two-letter word. Two-letter word. All right. If any of you got it right, my congratulations. I'm serious. Whoa, whoa. Actually, it's not whoa, it's woo. W U. Uh, all right, I'm going to give you another one. Produced in the zona fasciculata of the adrenal cortex, which steroid hormone plays a key role in the body's response to stress, stimulating the production of glucose and activating anti-inflammatory pathways? Actually, it just occurred to me, if you don't let yourself get um, freaked by the things that are coming at you that are not germane, because as I read that, I realized that the real question is, which steroid hormone plays a role in the body's response to stress? That I understand, right? But they they put these other things around it that just make your eyes roll around in your head. Produced in the zonal fascicle, the adrenal cortex, blah, 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 blah. So the answer to that is cortisol, which you may in fact know. Anyway, this guy, and it's especially wonderful as far as I'm concerned. He's a young black man, and he was 27 years old. His name is Brandon Blackwell, grew up in New York, and he always loved these kinds of games. In fact, he was on Teenage Jeopardy, and he made a little money, not much. But he realized that this was something you could work at. And so he applied himself, did the flashcard thing, then did it again, then thought, if I really get good at this, I should be able to make a living just doing this. And you know what? He has. He thought, if I'm going to make being the smartest guy in these crazy quizzes the way I'm going to make a living, then I better go to where the craziest quizzes are. And that's London. So he figured out a way to get to London. He also knew that their big show, which pitted, it's called University Challenge. It's like, College Bowl. And it pits teams from, Oxford and Cambridge against other schools in the UK. And so he enrolled in a school in the UK that had never won the damn thing or hadn't won it since in 30 years, called Imperial College. Well, he enrolled there so he could get on their stupid team. And well, I'll cut to the chase. He absolutely forced that team over the course. It took him years to get serious and to go at it like he did, like it's a job. And they started obliterating. Imperial College never. So I'm looking at a screenshot where the Imperial College team with him on it, there's 4 guys, has 190 points, and Cambridge has 55. So he regularly on that team beat the so-called big brains, Cambridge and Oxford, Cambridge and Oxford, Cambridge and Oxford, because those are universities that have colleges in them. And so he was they're always facing some Cambridge or Oxford college, and those guys couldn't beat him. And the Brits went nuts. Says here, social media in Britain lit up with commentary about this wildly expressive American, because all the Brits, none of them, their faces don't move. He wildly expressive because he used his face. I mean, he was happy, he smiled, and that's just not the British way. And then he beat the pants off him. And the article says, he was fidgety and eager, the exact opposite of the British ethos of effortless superiority. Never look like you're in any way engaging in anything stressful. It's to appear to be striving is, well, it's simply not done. And yet the Brits, much of the reaction to him was just, whoa! Although, of course, some of it was racist and plenty of it was critical. the fact, I mean, the BBC ended up doing a piece on is it proper to show emotion? A quiz show. Anyway, so he and that school he went to just, it says, rampaged through the tournament in 2020, posting the most lopsided results in that long running show's history. So there you have it. The Times of London said, the triumph burnishes Brandon Blackwell's credentials as one of the sharpest quizzers in the English-speaking world. And so once he proved his point, he left England, went back to New York, and yet he changed the way all these schools approach the game. He came in and said, stop this British bullshit. You need to think and play more strategically. And then on top of it, he ends up doing what he said he would do. He has since made a very good living turning quizzing into his full-time profession. And I don't know this show, but it says here that he now appears on both the American and Australian versions of The Chase. I don't know what that is. Anyway, he's on that. He regularly wins more than $100,000 a show. Wow. Brandon Blackwell, ladies and gentlemen, who brought that, sort of tireless American ethos, that striving, you want something, you go get it, to the UK, and change the way they now approach that game. Just saying. Okay. What else we got here? I've got a bunch of other stuff, but I'm worrying about my time commitment. Speaking of these Republicans, just being full on Kremlin plants now. If you stop and think about it, in our legislature, in our national legislative branch, there are now people who are actively working not for America's interest, but for Russia's. I think that's called treason, but I don't know. You can correct me if I'm wrong. One of the biggies is, of course, that loathsome Marjorie Taylor Greene, who just flat out says we should be on Russia's side in this war. Unbelievable. I mean, it really is unbelievable. The Republicans in Congress are such a horrific collection of humans. And the ones that could conceivably be called honorable, I don't know that any of them can, if you want to know the truth, but honorable, they're leaving. I mean, they don't have the courage to stay and fight, but they're getting the hell out. I mean, there is no way after this election coming up that the Republicans will be in control of the House of Representatives. There's no way. I can't even begin to imagine. And thank God, Hakeem Jeffries will be the Speaker of the House and not the hapless, Christian nationalist Mike Johnson. But the Senate, that's a whole other thing. So to show you how insane the House Republicans are, there was a piece I read about one of them, a lunatic named Clay Higgins of the great state of Louisiana. And this guy is just openly a fascist. I mean, he's just out and out a fascist. He traffics in fantasy and conspiracy. He wears a pin of the 3%ers. You know who the 3%ers are? Well, they're a bunch of nutcases, and they are an anti-government militia. Okay? They're fascists. He says, and how these guys get reelected, which means that his constituents believe what he's saying, I guess. He says that the rise of the coronavirus, the pandemic, was a plot by the government to infiltrate pro-Trump online forums. Now, wait a minute. Okay. So if you're going to say that the pandemic was, some nefarious plot by, it depends on who you want to, government, Jews, whatever, the Chinese, blah, 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 to do something or other, that why would you have to have an entire global pandemic to infiltrate pro-Trump online forums? I ask you, Congressman Higgins, hello? Is anybody home? Obviously, he thinks that the good people on January 6th were tricked into appearing to be a mob. And this guy has even talked about, you can't make this up. He says there were ghost buses, white buses that brought in federal agents posing as Trump supporters, and they were the ones that helped trick these other guys, and then the buses somehow disappeared. I guess they were like taken up in a kind of, rapture. Now, if you had a nutcase in your party like this, you might just try to keep an eye on them and push them off to the side. But this Republican Party, they have elevated him. They've given him a chairmanship of the subcommittee that oversees our border security. God help us. I am just saying these people are insane. They're evil. They are dangerous. And they are traitors. And I'm not even overstating the case. Jesus H. All right, guys, that's it for me. Got God help you all. Don't look directly at it. Those of you who simply refuse to even go outside, even for the partial eclipse, I commend you for your, but I'll nod to your contrariness. And normally I am on your side. This time I don't think. Anyway, I'll see ya. That's it. Pour moi, I think. Well, maybe not.
Lynn
Jesus.
Cullen Live.
Yeah.
Monday through
How about
Thursday
doing it
from
when
10
I push
a.m.
ya?
to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.
Oh, God, no.